Hey, everybody, this is Brett Ingram, and this is the optYOUmize podcast, the show that helps entrepreneurs build their dream business and dream life. Today, we're talking with Jill Lublin. She's known as the media magnet, as a world-renowned publicity expert, international speaker, 4 times best-selling author. She's also shared stages with the likes of Tony Robbins, Jack Canfield, Barbara Corcoran, and others. So she knows how to get media attention. I'm really excited about this because I know a lot of entrepreneurs really struggle to get their message out and to get seen. So with that, welcome, Jill. Thanks a lot for joining us.
Thank you, Brett. It's delightful to be here.
Yeah, I'm super excited to talk to you. And there's a lot of stuff I want to get into, but can we just start off with your background? Could you give me a sense of what you did to start your career, even if it wasn't in the current field that you're in?
Sure. Well, funny enough, like some people, I kind of fell into my career. I actually was slated to go to law school and did. I went to for a year, wherein I discovered that this was not my path, even though I thought it really was and was very much looking forward to it. However, during that time, I started in the music business thinking, okay, I'm going to give myself something interesting to do, and discovered really my true talent, which is promotion and publicity. So from there, I actually dropped out of law school and started in the music business, which was amazing for training me, I'll say, in the area of publicity because it's all about perception. And so I had a great time there and stayed in the music business doing promotion and publicity for, gosh, close to 5 years.
That's really cool. You know, it is funny. I talked to a lot of different people, and some people deliberately knew what they wanted to do, went into it. That's what they do. In other cases, a lot of times, actually, it's almost accidental that they discover something and they realize, I'm really good at this. So this
Yeah.
is something I want to keep doing. So that's awesome. I think a lot of people out there, especially small business owners and entrepreneurs, I'm sure I was guilty of this too when I was younger, think that public relations or PR is really something that like big firms do. So can you give us a sense of what PR actually is and who can benefit from it?
Well, the truth is, all of you can benefit from it because you're doing it whether you like it or not. Because publicity happens from the minute you walk out of your room into a Zoom room, into a coffee house, to a meeting. You're always doing publicity, meaning you're defining who you are, your message, you're inviting people to work with you. And yeah, big firms spend big money on publicity. And as the author of Guerrilla Publicity, I want to invite you to think of publicity as an ongoing visibility building activities and to stay in momentum with it. And so that means local publicity. That means writing a simple article, maybe even every quarter. But it's about visibility building activities that keep you in front because the truth is, the more people know about you, the more you can be seen, heard, and paid, and that's what publicity does. It brings you profits and prospects, right? And possibilities for more credibility and trust in the marketplace, all of which is important, all of which publicity does. And everybody needs it, no matter what size business you are. Take a page from the big firms. There's a reason they spend millions of dollars on publicity, right?
Absolutely. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I think we'd all love to be able to, spend a giant budget on doing this kind of stuff and hope that we can get our name and our word out that way. But I know that there are tricks to the trade as well, and I want to get into a couple of those things. But in terms of messaging itself, I've actually coached and worked with a lot of entrepreneurs, and one of the things that always fascinates me is how few of them have good handle on what their messaging is. So they know what they do, they know what their business does, and they're actually really good at what they do. But they have a very hard time if you ask them to articulate it in a sentence or a sentence or two, even. It's sort of all over the place, and they don't have a clear way to get that message across. And I would imagine that then when you're trying to get that out into the world, it's pretty muddled and difficult for that to cut through. So when you think about messaging, what do you consider to be, the keys to messaging, and how could somebody really like create that?
Yes, well, I have a fabulous formula for it that keeps it very simple because the reality is, and I call it really your message formula. Because the truth is, when someone says, "What do?" You got to be quick and easy to deliver. You've got to be concise and precise. And guess what? When the media is interviewing you, that's what they want too. It's called concise and precise. So, to that end, the first thing to think about is what's the problem out there? I didn't ask, "What do you do?" Most entrepreneurs will default to "what you do." I say, let's get off of that and talk about what's the problem out there. Because when the media is listening to you, they're listening for what are their readers, viewers, and listeners want, right? And so you got to talk to that. So that's the first thing to start with, a simple statement that's clear, concise, and in 5-year-old language. That's key too. No jargon, please. No big words. Just leave all that out of it. People just want results and what they will get. So that leads me to the solutions, which you want to be giving. And you'd say, as a fill in the blank, in my case, as a publicity expert, I want to give you 3 things. I like threes. People can remember in threes. No more than that, please. It's just too much for people to absorb. So give people 3 solutions, simple, keep it in 5-year-old language, tell them what to do. This is where you're going to tell them what to do. You're going to give appetizers, not full meals, and you're going to give value and benefit. I remember when I wrote Guerrilla Publicity, I was talking to the editor of Entrepreneur Magazine, and she said to me, what we really need is value for our readers. And so media is listening for value, but everybody you're talking to is listening to value from you so that you can give them, actual things to do. That's a key.
That's great. I really like that. And I think it helps people clarify their own thinking about it all because you're right. A lot of people, if you ask them, they start off with what they do, and that doesn't translate to, so you're making the other person do the work to figure out how that benefits me. If you're telling me what you do, now I got to figure out, okay, so if that's what you do, then okay, yeah, maybe I'll, and you've already lost everybody because it's hard enough to get attention in the first place. I don't remember where I heard this, but in a parallel industry, in the, the Hollywood filmmaking industry, you could write an entire screenplay. You have to be able to, you get basically 2 sentences to distill down what that screenplay is about if you want to pitch it. Otherwise, they've already slammed the door on you and moved on to the next person. So you put in all this work, you've done all these things, and it could be the best screenplay in the world. But if you ever want anyone to read it, you got to get their attention with those like 2 lines. Otherwise, you're gone. Your opportunity is over. So that's fascinating, but a great way to look at it. So if we talk about experts a little bit, I just want to drill down on this a little because I know a lot of people that are very knowledgeable. They're very good at what they do, but they're unknowns. Nobody knows who they are. So in your opinion and in your experience, is an expert really somebody that knows a lot, or is it someone who's positioned themselves correctly? So in the field, they're viewed as somebody who knows a lot. I'm sure there's some overlap, but I'm just curious to see what your take is on.
Well, I think the first thing is claiming for yourself, I am an expert, right? You have to believe it, you have to know it. And, to me, it doesn't matter years of experience. It's coming out the gate with, I am an expert. Okay. So that's a key. And then having that in that concise, precise message so that other people get not only why you're an expert, but really what's the problem in the marketplace. And then you're giving them some solutions to actually deal with it, be with it, and, frankly, solve it because you're the expert who knows how to solve problems. So it's a lot, some of it's really mindset and followed by, good words that underline everything you say. So that helps a lot, and to know that experts are the ones who are interviewed. If you look at when the media interviews people, they call them source. Yeah, right? You're the source of information. So it's just really good to know that.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to look at it for sure. I know one of the challenges people have is, and I've seen this a lot, is even when somebody knows a lot, they're afraid to just be forthcoming about that. Don't be embarrassed about your accomplishments, your knowledge, your skills. You know what I mean? Like put it out there for the world to see because people aren't going to spend the time to get to know you to realize, hey, you know what? They really are an expert at this. They know what's going on. You've got to have that message and that hook and everything else, and you have to have the confidence. And I think there does seem to be a pretty large contingency of sort of that imposter syndrome. People that feel. I spoke to a woman a few months back, and she's in a very tight small niche, but it's actually really cool. And what she does, I don't know anybody else who has the experience that she's got. She's got all this experience. She has all these testimonials. She has all these results that she can show, that she can prove. She bought all the equipment for a podcast, has a whole studio set up. She's terrified to get behind the microphone and start recording. She said to me, well, what if nobody wants to listen? I'm like, do you see the kind of information, the background you've got, the knowledge people would be dying to know what you have to say. And on top of it all, she's got an engaging personality. She's got, a really good presence about her. People would 100% listen to it, but she's been sitting on this for 18 months, scared to get started.
Because it's her own
Oh,
doubts. And I say to any of you who have that kind of doubt, or some of my clients will say they have a bit of imposter syndrome. The truth is, you wouldn't be who you are or have the talents and skills you do, if you weren't the one to give those gifts. And that's what I see publicity really helps you to do, is give your gifts to the world. It is a gift that keeps on giving, in fact, because it multiplies you and magnetizes you and monetizes you for the opportunity to really serve others. That's important.
yeah, which is great. And I think, it's important for people if you even have that passion or that desire and you feel like to at least give it a go, right? Get out
Yeah.
there, start doing some things, and you may find that your message resonates in a way that people say, wow, that really connected for me and really helped me. And that's going to help build up your confidence. But until you take that initial leap or that initial attempt, it's hard for anybody to know or to be able to recognize that. So I think that's really good advice. So when it comes to media, I know that as we've sort of touched on, we don't get a lot of wiggle room. We don't get a lot of time or a lot of chances. When if you are lucky enough to get an opportunity to do something in front of media or whatever, is there a formula or some kind of methodology that you go through for to create a great media script? If you've got sort of that one opportunity and you've got to make this thing count, you want to be able to do it in the right way. What do you recommend in that regard?
Well, I say get right to the point, number one. Media are impatient. They actually really don't have a lot of time. They're on often tight deadlines. So, number one, they really appreciate you getting to the point, being clear. You don't have to dance around it or be concerned that you're a, problem. They need news and they need you, and you are the news. Then I would go to the formula I just gave you, which is the problem today is, and go right into it, and say that as an expert, you have solutions for their readers, viewers, listeners, fill in the blank, and that you'd like the opportunity to give them straight and simple things to do, and here they are, boom. And so when they hear that you're articulate and confident, even if it's practice, even if you're a little nervous while you're saying it, it's okay. And again, not everything has to be perfect. Authenticity is key. Let people see who you are as a personality. If you're serious, great. If you're funny, great. Whatever it is, you can be who you are and be professional. And what that means is to the point and focused in your communication. And even to the point where you say, listen, I know you're busy and I want to give you what it is that I would be sharing with your listeners and go right to it. And I think when you do that, they respect that. They respect that you respect their time and they're clear that you're clear. So all of that makes a big difference in how the media perceives you.
Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. I spoke to a reporter, a guy who was in as a reporter for 20 years, and he said, even newspaper reporters, which obviously it's not, big media like TV or something like that, but he said, if you want to reach out to reporters, they're always looking for stories, but
Yes.
they aren't going to hunt through things to find it. So if you get them with the thing that connects with what they need, and you help fill that, they will pay attention. They'll listen to
Yes.
you if they think that you have a story that's newsworthy. And I also was talking to a guy who he's been on like the late night talk shows and stuff like that, and he said the number one rule for the bookers for those shows is their biggest motivators, they don't want to get fired. They're terrified that if they bring on the wrong guest, they're going to get fired. So he said, your only job in the beginning is to make sure they feel totally confident and that you're going to go out there and do exactly what they need you to do. Because if
Right.
you make them look bad, you're never going to get on another show. They're worried about losing their job and they don't want to. So I thought that was a funny way to look at it because, well, it makes logical sense. I don't think a lot of people would think of it that way. You'd sort of think of it like, well, yeah, if I have something good to share, we'll do our best to make this work. So it was a funny stories there, but
Yeah,
so
and I want to underline that one of your jobs is to make the host look good. So that means let them talk. If they're more talkative, make sure you get your main points because here's the other side of that. You're also in control of your message. So, ooh, think of that one, right? And that means no matter, in a way, what they ask you, I could say to you, Brett, that's a great question. What I want to share with your listeners is boom. And then I lay down my point because you never know where some hosts may go. They may go to the questions you want, they may just pull things out of the air. They probably haven't done a lot of research on you, honestly. They're busy people. The producer, on the other hand, we'll give them a sheet and kind of, cheat notes, I'll call it. They often will have a teleprompter if it's on television, so they're absolutely reading off a script. You aren't, okay? Which means that your script needs to be clear for you. And I do think that one should have a script, meaning a main message, key points that you want to get out, and then we can chat, then we can banter and that's fine, but I just want to make sure that you're in control of your message and getting your main points out.
I really like that because it is something that comes with practice, right? When you start and you're doing interviews, whether you're the subject or whether you are the host, the point is when you start to go through it, you realize there are all different personality types. There are different methodologies for the way people go. And some people will absorb every bit of oxygen you give them. Some people will answer or ask a question and then just leave, drop the mic and let you go. And so you have to be prepared for all those scenarios. And to your point, if they want to take it in a direction that doesn't really help you or help even probably the audience, but it's for some reason something they've keyed on. The pivot there, I'm glad you asked that question. By the way, I love that because it's such a great and effective way. You're not disrespecting the host, but at the same time, you're making sure you're redirecting things back on message where you want it to go. So powerful technique there. I've heard you talk about the ooh ah factor. Can you tell us what that is and why that's important?
I love the ooh ah factor. Number one, it's fun to say, and it's a sound bite, right? Sound bite. So you need to speak in sound bites and think in sound bites. Number one, the media responds to that. People respond to that. Time is of the essence these days. And so, considering that, an average TV interview, check this out, is 4 minutes long, you better be speaking in sound bites, right? So that's just something that's important. And as far as the ooh ah factor, then I want you to capture other parts of you that perhaps we could be putting you in media for, like Black History Month, Hispanic Heritage Month. If using everything you've got, your ethnicity, your religion, being a woman for International Women's Day. I wrote a book called The Profit of Kindness. We use World Kindness Day on November 13th to spread that message as another example. Use all parts of who you are, everything you got going on, because what that's going to do is give you more opportunities for much more media. And it's super exciting.
Oh, that's neat. What a good concept, because even if the appearance that you're on, or the media attention that you're getting is not necessarily related to it, if you drop those little nuggets there, other people could pick up on that as well and say, hey, we could get that guest for this, apply it to that, whatever the case may be. Oh, we're doing a documentary on this particular phenomenon. They mentioned that they've got expertise in there. So if they think that you have a good message and a good presence and things like that, then I could see where there'd be crossover there, and a lot of value. So that makes really good sense. And I like the idea too of embracing all of who we are, because it's fascinating when I sit and I talk to people about business. We could talk for hours just about marketing and strategy and various other things that has very little to do with who I am or my background. I've done that kind of stuff, but there are a lot of stories even within my own background. And it's funny because recognizing the value of storytelling, it was something that I consciously thought of, what stories do I have in my own experience? I'm kind of an ordinary guy. What stories do I have in my experience that I could share that people would even care about? And then when I started to think about it, there were a number of these things that were actually pretty remarkable. I mean, one time when I was starting my business, I had a briefcase in my with a zip drive in it that had all my data on it. And I went to school for graduate school in New York City, and normally I would take the train. So every single day I take the train, I got the bag on my shoulder, go into class, come out of class, go home at night, start the day over the next day. I was running late. It's one of maybe 3 times in 3 years I was running late. So I drove into the city instead. I parked under a street light, knowing this is a nice public area right near NYU, had the attaché case in the back seat, went into class, came out, got a sense something was wrong. As I approached the car, the window was smashed, the bag was gone,
Oh
and
my,
there was nothing even of value in there. But it
oh,
was 3 months worth of business research. And this is before cloud storage. So my entire business research for 3 months, it's the only place I had it. It wasn't on any other backups, no computers, lost the entire business. And I was just like, man, if that's not a story about resilience, to pick yourself up after that, it was a depressing ride home. But I said, I can either let this defeat me, or I can lean in and say, you know what, this is just an obstacle. I'm going to overcome it. And one day it's going to be a story I can tell. And when you think about your own life, if you think hard enough and long enough, there are enough things in there that are remarkable enough, that stand out enough, that people would want to hear about. And I think it's a super important message not to take our own lives and our own experiences for granted that way. So when it comes to getting visibility, I'm curious as to what your thoughts are. We've talked about public relations. What are your thoughts about social media, ads? Is there a formula? Is there a way to sort of use all this together? Or how do you think that should work?
well, number one, if I don't want you to substitute your social media for publicity. Social media is social media. Just let's keep it apart. Do I believe in it? Yes. Use my formula for publicity for your social media. In fact, one gentleman who was in my media mastery intensive posted on his social media his message, the formula we spoke about. He got 250 likes. Now that is outstanding. So
Yeah.
you can use your social media to brag about your publicity, and I think that's all good. Um, just be careful. And I see people doing this, that they're substituting social media. They think that if they're on social media, that's publicity. It isn't. kind of a one-hit wonder, to be honest, and you're lucky if people see what you post. So publicity is much longer lasting. It keeps on giving. It's a continuous um, creation of your message. So I just want to say that because I see people doing it. So that's something important. And is social media important? Yes, it is. Yes, it is. I just don't want you to have it take the place. Ads, of course, you've got to have a bigger budget. Listen, I've done ads for my Media Mastery Intensive. Sometimes it's been wonderful, and other times kind of hit and miss. And I've spent a lot of money and budget on that maybe would have been better used in other directions. We learn in business. We take some actions, and most importantly, it's most important to keep going. But I think for consistency and persistency, stay on the publicity route. That'll be bringing you great value and real prospects and profits. That's a great thing.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's funny because social media is sort of one of those weird things, right? I know even in Hollywood now, they're casting actors for movies based on a social media following because they know that if they have X amount of people that follow them and then they cast them, they're going to sell X amount of tickets automatically, which I think is kind of funny because I don't find social media to be a transactional medium very much at all. So
No.
I guess if you're making other media, it might work, but as far as selling, I've never seen too many people do very well with organic social media doing them. And but it is interesting because it's also, look, even in the podcasting realm, the statistics for podcasting are hard to find. If you aren't ranked, top 10 on a chart somewhere, people don't know whether you're getting 5 listeners, 500,000 listeners. And so the challenge is they'll look at social media to say, oh, well, do you have a social media following? Like, or is anybody listening to what you're saying or whatever else? And it's interesting because it's almost used as a surrogate, I think, sometimes for gravitas or expertise or whatever, but it seems to be a little bit window dressing to me, to be honest. And I do like the idea of the pure publicity instead. So another concern that I know people would have about publicity would be the ROI, right? I mean, if we spend money on something, you alluded to the idea that whether it's ads or social media, if we're pumping money into something, is that where our money is best spent? Is there some sort of idea? The perception might be, oh, it's warm and fuzzy to do the publicity stuff, but is it going to put sales in my business? Is it going to put money in the bank? What's your take on the ROI for publicity?
Well, let me just say, like anything, if you don't do it, you won't have any. And I have consistently seen ROI. For instance, one woman following, and I believe in systems for publicity. In following my system, she got 45 book sales, independently published book sales in a 15-minute podcast. I mean, where else can you get that, right? That's pretty awesome. I have one
Yeah.
woman, yeah, who was featured in a blog. Check this out for a $25 accessory product, and she had 600 sales,
Wow.
$625 sales. I mean, that's amazing. I had one gentleman using everything he's got. He shifted his story to being focusing on being Asian American. We got him in the Chinese Business Journal, and one inquiry, there were more, got him a $7,000 consulting engagement. Now, I would say
Mm.
that those are great ROIs, and that's just some of the ones I can tell you about. But let me tell you that it consistently drives people to your website. You'll definitely see increased stats quickly with viewing and participating, and actually people buying your products and services. And because you know why? The trust and credibility is there.
Yeah, that's right, because it isn't self-serving in the way that some of the other stuff is. So that makes total sense. Okay, so where can people find you, find your products, find your services?
Well, I did a wonderful free gift for all of you, and you can find it at joelublin.com/gift. So that's a JillLublin.com/guide, GUIDE. And what that does is give you a free publicity action guide filled with even more tips than we even had time for today, plus a free publicity masterclass, which is live and interactive with me on Zoom. And I'll pour some great content into you, and you can ask all of your important publicity questions. So there are two gifts for you right there, and I'm sure you'll put that in the show notes too.
I definitely will. Is your challenge still alive too? Can I talk about that?
Absolutely.
All right. Awesome. So, listen, I really appreciate you joining us. With that, it's about time to wrap things up. I want to thank you so much, Jill, for sharing all your insights, great tips with us. Visit JillLublin.com. It's LUBLIN.com/challenge to join her in the 3-day publicity challenge to discover the strategies you can use to gain massive visibility and attract the leads, clients, and referrals you need to take your business to the next level. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. And as always, remember, no matter what you want for your business and your life, don't compromise, optimize.